Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of the United States of a Movie podcast. It might be a Monday, but now it's a fun day because now we get to talk movies. My name is Ollie Petrick. I'm a massive movie fan. I used to host movie shows off in Asia, but now I've found two amazing co-hosts who love movies just as much, if not more than me. And here on this podcast, we try to answer the unanswerable question by trying to find just one movie, just one, to define each state in the United States. The state that we are taking down this week is Connecticut. But before we get into this and the fact that Connecticut has an extra C in it, I didn't realize this is how we spelled Connecticut. But let's introduce my amazing co-host. First of all, Ryan Sandler, sick as a dog. How you doing, Ryan?
Oh man, this whole week has been a fever dream in more ways than you can imagine. I'm glad I watched these three movies before getting sick, and that now somehow I don't remember any of them. I'm the first one to finish all three movies and the first one to forget all three of them existed. Well, except for one. Except for one, yeah. Which we won't say the title of 3 times. But before we get there, let's also welcome back the man, the myth, the legend, Will Hirsch. Welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thank you for having me. You guys will be happy to know I have fully replaced my wife with an automaton, and man, my life has gotten better.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what.
The Suckbot 4000.
Yeah.
Let's get into that because yeah, we had an interesting, and I was confused. I was like a little bit like reticent with going into Connecticut. There's been a lot of like New England, sometimes a little bit tricky, but in this particular case, I think we ended up with a pretty good, pretty varied week of movies.
A state so indescribable, so unrecognizable that Will, in your movie, it's so funny to me because I'm being from New York. Your movie opens with what seems to be like a cross-country road trip, which is more or less an hour-and-a-half drive.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's they somehow in between Connecticut and New York, every single type of environment like
it's
exists.
Wild. Yeah.
Strange.
And everybody in that movie drove the same sort of like car. You know, that same sort of station
Old
wagon.
school.
Yeah, very boxy vehicles. Sure, yeah.
Mhm.
They're about 28 feet long and like not a seatbelt in sight. But actually, well, look, why don't you tell everybody what movie we're talking about?
So I picked the movie The Stepford Wives, not the 2004, 2005 Frank Oz movie, which I've been told I should watch.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it years ago. I was not very impressed. I was struck by how different this original Stepford Wives was.
Very
Extremely different movie.
Yes.
This was a fun watch because you forget that, oh, this is how movies were made in the 70s. Like this is
this just drips 70s and like
so much 70s. Just first
right on
minutes.
Right on the cusp of porno, but not really
looks like a porn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah.
I don't know about everybody else's transfer or where they saw. I think I watched it on Tubi. But it had, you know, the amount of sort of noise in the picture was just so indicative of like 70s movies, almost like it was shot handheld. It was reminding me of Walking Tall. It was reminding me of Texas.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It was that kind of feel and vibe. And
yes, it's very different. So I remember seeing the Frank Oz one with Nicole Kidman back in, you know, whenever it came out. And I remember it like being, because they definitely kind of lean into the sort of the humor.
Yeah.
You know, whereas in this case, this is the 70s, baby. This is 70s sci-fi. This is no humor. And if you think you're going to have a happy ending, boy, oh boy, are you wrong. It's the 70s.
See, it's an even happier ending because, man, let me tell you.
Oh, my God. I watched this on Pornhub, and it was just called What Are You Doing, Stepford?
Yeah.
And it was only 12 minutes long.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be able to watch it.
And I still skipped through it.
Because Pornhub is blocked in Texas. Yeah, we live we're in a police state. That's where we live.
So what VPN are we plugging here today?
Yeah. Brought to you by ExpressVPN.
Yeah. This week's sponsor. Yep. Stepford Wives was I was intrigued by it. At the very first sort of like 5 minutes or so, I go, oh, is this movie going to be terrible? But no, as the movie goes on, I'm like, I like it. I like the sort of just the the general sort of threat of it all. I like, as the drip, drip, drip that we're realizing the men are all just insipid, just incels.
I think I said on our text thread too. I like that this movie, like her husband is just a guy. Like he's just a normal looking guy. Like he's not like a heartthrob or anything. He's just looks like a normal.
He doesn't
man.
deserve his braless wife. All the husbands in this movie do not deserve their braless wives.
I tell you what,
it's crazy.
I was talking to Mrs. about that movie, and I was like, I think the craziest thing about it, because I was saying, oh, they just take all the women and they record all their voices and they make them into robots or whatever. But I said, but they all of them make the boobs bigger. They make all of their boobs bigger, like literally do that in the movie. And I'm like,
yeah. So much so that like if you're playing a video game and that you have like a character creator slider and they just crank everything to 13 and it is, jiggle physics check.
Yeah, I was about to say
no.
individual breast physics. There's those weird volleyball games that the Japanese have and things like that.
I mean, they're not that weird. I mean,
hang on.
If you have 5 or 6 of them in your collection, it's you're just a connoisseur of the content.
Totally normal. But yeah, this it was giving me, it was kind of like, what was it? Not Running Man. What's another one of those sort of 70s? What's that 70s sci-fi movie? Logan's Run. Yeah. That just that whole vibe. And so like as the movie was going on, I definitely realized, oh, it's all going to go tits up. It's a 70s movie, isn't it? Every 70s movie ended with whatever's the worst thing that could happen happens, credits.
The whole movie is tits up, but not in the way that you're thinking.
No,
in the bad way.
Yeah, I think I said in our text thread this movie is just wall to wall nips. It's great. Not a single brassiere in this film.
Not a single.
Just like the way it should be.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, hear that, Marvel?
This is a whole movie about people taking their really hot wives and making them into like, what was that, like at a convent or something? Like they all wore the ugliest crap by like the end. It was awful.
They did. They took all these really, really interesting women and made them really, really boring. I'm like, man, these guys suck. But fascinating movie nonetheless. The next choice, Ryan, you had an interesting movie that I haven't seen since it came out. Mrs. and I remember talking about. We're going, we both remember watching it, and we remembered not liking it.
Yeah.
I rewatched it this week, and I think this is going to be the biggest bone of contention for the week, because I know you guys have been slagging off this movie. I thought this movie was fantastic. It is now on my rotation. I will be watching it at Christmas. Tell us about this movie.
There's a lot to unpack on this one. I almost picked this for our Christmas episode.
Yeah.
I was also trying to redeem myself for bringing Home for the Holidays to the table for Thanksgiving,
right?
Which this movie is very like adjacent to that, so much so that Claire Danes is in both of them, right?
Yes, it's very adjacent. I actually remember this movie being a Thanksgiving movie as well. I didn't realize it was Christmas.
Yeah, and one of my dear friends, she loves Christmas and she loves this movie. This is like her chicken soup film. Like she watches it every Christmas and she's been trying to get me to watch it too. So when it popped up on the Connecticut list, I thought I would pick it and finally give it a chance. And I mean, I have some thoughts about this movie. It's a very by the numbers holiday family Christmas
Yes and
film.
no. I know what you mean. And I was definitely in the first 10 minutes going, like almost laughing at the movie with like the checklist of, here's the sister, but she's got the NPR bag, and like here's the not just gay but gay deaf son with black boyfriend, tick 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 tick. I'm just ticking all this shit off. But I will be honest, is I think what got me is it's such an incredible group of actors.
Yeah.
You got Diane Keaton, Craig T. Nelson, Sarah Jessica Parker, Luke Wilson, Dermot Mulroney, Rachel McAdams, Claire Danes, etc.
Yeah.
And
the guy from Cabin in the Woods, the black
guy from Cabin in the Woods.
Yes. The only other thing I know him from, Michael C. Jordan.
Yeah.
That's probably not his name, but that's all I got.
I think exactly. But yes, that's right. The guy from Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah. I was like, I did the Leonardo DiCaprio. I was like, oh, that's the guy.
Dude, not aged a day.
No.
In between
Cabin, man.
Yeah. But I tell you, like this movie though, it by the end had completely won me over. I was crying like a little bitch at the end of this movie. I'm like,
I knew you would be, but I watched the plot is so wildly insane to me. Like the threat, like it's just very much like, let's do the most family Christmas movie we possibly can, because it has It hits all the beats, all the notes, ticks all the boxes. It's got all of the things, and it's a perfectly fine film.
Yeah,
I think go Will. I want to hear.
I don't think there's anything like really wrong with this film. I think I'm on the same side. It's perfectly fine. I would not be opposed if somebody else ever wanted to watch this again. Not anti it. I was confused. Now, granted, I was working on other things while this movie was on, trying to pay attention. There's some things I didn't understand in this movie, which is why from the get-go did they hate Sarah Jessica Parker so much?
Seriously, I was wondering that
They
too.
just come in and be like, "Hi, how's it going?" And like Diane Keaton's like, "I'm gonna stab her in the face."
And they the only one that had met her is the sister. Like, so it's
no. So the thing is, I don't think I was in the right place when I saw this movie in 2005, and where I am now, middle-aged with kids, with, aging parents, with all this kind of stuff that I feel like right in the middle of everything, that I saw this movie very differently. And I'd say, Will, I was asking the same question, and then you realize that Diane Keaton isn't being herself. But of course, we don't know this. It's because Diane Keaton found out just before this that she's going to die. Yeah. So she's completely thrown off. She is completely off. It's only because she's acting strange that the kids start realizing something's up. Like the pregnant one is the first one to realize, and she comes and just gives her mum a hug, and she turns around and goes, "Do the others know?" And she goes, "No." And it's like that's when I realized that there's a lot more subtlety going on in this movie. And the reason is, the reason that she's being off, and the reason she just doesn't gel is because, no, this is the last Christmas I'm ever going to get with my children. And this is my mother's ring, and I'm going to die, and he's going to go off and marry the wrong woman. And it's just completely throwing her off. And that's what I mean, that by the end, I'd say, okay. Because it was written and directed by, it's written and directed by this guy called, sorry, but great name. Now, it's spelt Bezucha, but Thomas Bazooka.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yes. It's like,
I heard that guy's a blast.
So yeah, but the thing is, like, when you see something like that and you go written and directed by, and you go, okay, this person definitely has a vision, and then the opening credits start, and I go, oh, this guy, they're just swinging for the fences of this. This is what this movie is going to be, and honestly, I was set up to not like it. Yeah, totally won me over. We will get back to it because I want to get into that movie because I think there's so much about it that was fantastic. But I brought a movie to the table that was probably the easiest choice I've ever made. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie. I'm also notorious for calling out this direction we have on this podcast for making terrible, terrible movies after a point. But before that, the guy was on fire. The movie I'm talking about is Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, 1988. I was up till 2 o'clock this morning watching this movie because I got my schedule all messed up this week and I realized, oh shit, I've got to watch Beetlejuice right now.
You get to watch Beetlejuice right now.
Exactly. That's exactly what Mrs. said. Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder. Oh yeah, Michael Keaton. Man, it's been a while. And I still remember all the little beats and things, but I also didn't remember how efficient that movie is. It's 90 minutes. It is within the first 5 minutes. You've killed Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis. The movie is just flying.
The movie flies, dude.
And everyone understands their character. So we as the audience just pick it up. There's nothing needs to be explained. It's just, this is who they are. This is who they are. They're dead. These are the new people. We're in Connecticut. Oh, that's Beetlejuice, by the way. He's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie. Yeah. I love this one. I hadn't seen it in forever, and this movie came out in 85, you said? Or 87? 88. And I was 5, 6 years old that loved this movie as a kid. I remember like legitimately being scary when I was that age, and then grew up, had all the toys, watched the cartoon, like was obsessed with this movie. And it's still like, it was such a treat to watch it again with fresh eyes. And it's still a blast.
I think the realization I had watching the movie last night is Tim Burton is at his best when he's limited, when he doesn't have all the money in the world, where he doesn't have, and we've talked about this before, but I think like some of the greatest movies or moments with directors are when they're pushed into a corner and you've got to figure it out. You don't have enough money. You've got to come up with something original. It's the same as the motion tracking cameras from Star Wars. I want to do something. It doesn't exist. We don't really have that much money. How can we make it happen? And I'm watching Beetlejuice, and you can just see it's being made on a shoestring.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's just some of the shots of scale when you got mini Beetlejuice and you got big people and they're talking down. I'm like, all of the
You get all of it, like the miniatures, the stop motion, like the most practical movie he could have made, and it still holds up flawlessly.
yeah.
Like it just only adds to the charm. Like that's the stop motion animation, like it's not fluid by any means, but it still works. Like it's part of
Yeah.
that film. It's, you know, it's the DNA of it.
Yeah,
And
because the
it's
story is so wacky and
Yeah.
it's so out there that it's totally fine that like the sandworms don't look real. And it's honestly what scares me about the new movie. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I'm so worried they're gonna like get Weta to make like perfect digital sandworms, and I'm like, I
yeah,
kind of think it should just be Phil Tippett, like just
I'm
grumpy
with you.
Phil Tippett, like just
Mhm.
being like here and just throwing something together and like I made you something, put it in the film.
Mm.
Like that's what I want to see.
Phil
But-
Tippett as Rooster Cogburn. Let's go.
Oh my
But, like-
god.
Let's go.
for example, it's kind of like and I know you guys listen to it too, but it's a great movie podcast. I'm sure like if anyone's listening or watching, if you don't listen to it, Blank Check. They've recently been doing McTiernan, and it's like, you know, when they were talking about Predator, and it's like, you know, they had an idea for Predator and how it was going to look, and it just wasn't working, and they changed everything, and then they happened to get a design with James Cameron happens to be sitting next to Stan Winston or whatever, and he's like, oh, I always thought mandibles would be kind of good. Oh, mandibles, and we've got one of the most iconic creations,
Yeah.
you know, of all time, and that's you know 100% what I'm talking about when it comes to this movie. I mean, for me, it's just like you said, Ryan. Like I remember this movie being kind of scary when I was a kid, and like I always remember, and it's still one of my favorite sort of movie jokes. And they're sort of like, oh, how scary can you be? And he goes, oh, how about this? And you do the reverse shot,
Yeah.
and just all these little arms, and
Yeah.
then this scream, and everyone like their reaction. It was just like, I go, that's pure comedy.
Did they do that on Netflix's The Movies That Made Us? Did they do a Beetlejuice episode? Because I feel like I'd heard that they'd actually shot that from the front too, but
It was too scary.
it was either too scary
Yeah.
or something about it wasn't working or it was too gross. So they just only shot it from the back, and that just makes that scene
Well,
so much
from
more
the
effective.
other from the reverse shot, it was Val Kilmer as Beetlejuice.
Oh,
so
shit.
You know,
that's why.
you know that it reminds me of is the same gag, but in reverse is in Scrooged, where like remember when he opens up Death. And
Yeah.
it's just, "Boo!" It's all they say.
Yeah.
and nope, just closes that
Yeah.
back down. No, that's not cool. I'm gonna ignore that.
Mm.
But I mean, you said it, Will. Is you were like, oh man, the plot is crazy. If anyone hasn't seen Beetlejuice, try and describe the plot.
Couple dies, and there's a wacky guy who somehow they could call him, and I'm a little unclear on the Beetlejuice rules actually and how he actually works. You summon him, but he's already there, but he comes into the world, but he still exists. It also doesn't matter. I also don't care.
Yeah.
Because he's just so much fun.
I kind of
And
want
they're-
like rewatching this now. I kind of want you get that little bit of backstory when they meet Juno, their caseworker, and he used to
Mhm.
work for her, and he was a bit of a wild card. I'm like, I kind of want to know a little bit more
Yeah.
about that. Like,
The origin story of Beetlejuice.
I want the prequel juice.
Yeah, the prequel juice. The pre-squeezed juice. But no,
right.
he's like a reverse exorcist. He instead of getting rid
They
of
call him a-
ghosts, you can hire him as a ghost to exorcise live people out of your house.
Yeah, it's genius.
Yeah.
It's a great twist
Yeah.
on it. And that's a thing, kind of like I was saying, they don't explain anything. It's just they die. Oh, there's a book, handbook for the recently deceased.
Mhm.
The fact that time works in a different way when you're dead, you know, suddenly this other family's moving in. Winona Ryder's there, being just peak Winona. You know,
Yeah.
just like Catherine O'Hara. I mean, oh my God, every single thing she's
Oh,
doing
my
in this
God.
movie.
Amazing.
Is it maybe? I think is this her best? I mean, the thing is, apart from Schitt's Creek, which I would also say is her best.
Yeah.
Like she's she's
Which
a
is a very similar character. You know,
Yeah.
got
Yes.
this very affluent type of transcontinental dialogue, I guess. It's
yeah.
insane.
well. I tell you what, I didn't know much about Connecticut. After watching these movies, I realized that Connecticut is a place where rich New Yorkers live, so they don't have to live in the city.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah. I was like watching these. All three of these movies are pretty much set inside of a house. for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I will say though, and I'd forgotten it, but I do love just the opening shot of Beetlejuice, where
Mm.
you've got the helicopter shot,
Uh,
house in the background, and then suddenly we transfer to the model.
the model, yeah.
And
That's really
and the
cool.
fact that the model takes place and it's a big part of what happens in the movie, and
Yeah.
it was so clever. I really, I'm patting myself on the back, but I honestly felt like Will picked this movie, but I feel like you guys picked this movie for me. Like, Ollie, you got to do Beetlejuice, right? I was like, yeah, I just got to do Beetlejuice. It was
Yeah.
such a treasure.
There's not a ton on that Connecticut list of films.
Right.
So Beetlejuice on there was kind of like a beacon of like, oh yeah, we gotta, I mean, you gotta watch the juice, man.
Yeah.
And it's you almost ask the question is like, how the hell they got it greenlit? Like pitching this movie, even looking at the poster, it looks terrible. I mean, you know, if you're looking at the poster, you look at the design of Michael Keaton, you know, you've got such young Gina Davis, you've got big, you know, got pre-fame, like this is at that point where Alec Baldwin was still, and Alec Baldwin, you know, before he became like before he got his, which is very 1988. When was Hunt for Red October? That was like the first time he ever got like an Alec Baldwin movie.
Like 91
or 89. But
like that, yeah.
This is what like, you look at him, he's so young and so skinny, and those blue eyes. He's such a handsome bastard.
I was gonna say total smoke show in this movie. Yeah.
Hunt for Red October. Okay, let's 1990. All right, there. So just 2 years after this. And that's kind of thing, because I saw this movie and I think, you know, I already knew who Alec Baldwin was. I already knew who Gina Davis was. It's like I don't remember seeing it in 1988. It's when
I definitely didn't see this in theaters. Like this was not a movie I was old enough to see in theaters by any means. So it was either on VHS or by the time it hit cable or whatever. And it just became like a character obsession. So much so it's like crazy to think that this movie had like a toy line and then birthed like
an
animated series. Yeah.
That was my first introduction to Beetlejuice. I remember seeing the cartoon first and then hearing like, oh, there's a movie.
Yeah.
And it actually shocked me because like their relationship is different. In the cartoon show, they're like buddies. They're like him and Lydia are like best friends. In the movie, it's way creepier. Way scarier.
So I don't know how they like transitioned from the end of this film into that cartoon, because it cannot be canon. It's insane.
Right. Remember when I almost made you my child bride? You know, like, oh my buddy. Yeah.
Know what I mean, babe? Yeah.
I have seen that. Now you say it, I remember them palling around, but yeah, that was like a definite part of the movie that I was like, wait a minute. He's getting married. I forgot what?
He needs like
hold on. He's a bad guy. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a green card wedding. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually my favorite aspect of this movie is all the bureaucracy and like paperwork that's involved with like the afterlife. That stuff always cracks me up. Anytime it's just like the fact that they're a case number and they're assigned like a social worker who's like, you guys are screwing up. I got this football team to deal with. Like, just I love stuff like that. That stuff is like quick way to get me on board. Just anytime you can make the afterlife boring and mundane.
It's also tangible, like the waiting room. It's you got the woman who's split in half.
The guy with the chicken bone in his neck,
stuck in his neck.
Yeah, oh God. It's
pretty graphic. The guy that's helping them, he's like on the rail, but he's run over. You've got like the tire marks across him.
That's my favorite.
It's
dark too, and then you get the receptionist who like slit her own wrists. Like, what
well, also then,
like dark.
Well, then their caseworker, she smokes, and I was like, oh, Zen, I remember this. Watch this, and it's like the smoke out of her neck. I'm like, look at that. That's like,
I didn't remember that when I was
the hell out.
I'm like, because you don't see it until that, like, it only happens in that one very end scene. Like, it's not consistent. Like, you see that she's got her throat was slashed, but you don't see the smoke billowing out. It's fucking dark, man. Some dark shit. The guy with the shark on his leg, I like that one.
Oh,
that was great.
Yeah.
So look, all right. So just in case you haven't seen Beetlejuice, what is wrong with you? First of all, immediately stop this podcast and go and watch it. But it tells the story of Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis. They're living in this beautiful house in this teeny tiny town in Connecticut. Within the first 5 minutes, we've established where the house is. We've established that he likes to build a model, and then they die. They die in a freak accident crossing one of these bridges. They crash into a car, and then they come out and they go, "Oh wow, that's weird." And they didn't realize they're dead. And before you know it, Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, and Fam move into their house, and so starts this kind of like bonkers, weird sort of story where Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are trying to deal with the idea that they're dead, but then also feel like this family's kind of moving in on them. And so they enlist the help of this guy, Beetlejuice, played by Michael Keaton, to try and scare them away. And what it ends up doing is just we have some hijinks, and they all end up getting on. It sounds ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
And all the while, Jeffrey Jones is trying to buy up plots of land in this town to then create some sort of ghost-themed town.
Yeah,
maybe?
That's right.
I was a little lost. I was a little lost about what he was trying to, because he changes his mind, like, because he doesn't believe in ghosts at first. Then when he learns there are ghosts, he's trying to set up
dollar sign eyeballs.
Yeah. So I was a little lost at what he was doing for most of the movie. It became more clear towards the end. But
I think maybe it's just sort of like commentary about like the way New Yorkers, or just honestly, it's
because he says they don't know what they're sitting on here. Like
right. Yeah. It's very much that, and it's everywhere. I mean, it's happening in Texas, it's happening all over, but it's like these beautiful little places that then the rich people find out about, and then they're like, all right, let's all move here. I mean, it's like, we'll get into it, but it's the exact plot of the Stepford Wives.
Yeah, it's the Beetlejuiceification of America. It's happening right now. You know, he looks out the window and he's like, bad roof, good parking. So it's like, you know, guys, Jeffrey Jones is in this movie.
Yeah, he's great. You know, like again, like Will said, is like maybe not someone to look up on Wikipedia anymore, but
stay away from that.
Fantastic in this movie. I mean, you know, it's Mr. Rooney from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah. You can't deny he was like a great in the movies he was in. Like he was definitely like an amazing actor.
I stand by one of my all-time favorite shitty movies, Mom and Dad Saved the World. It's a great one. Jeffrey Jones and John Lovitz. It's a banger.
I have not seen that movie. Which state is it set in?
the state of Todd Spengo.
But like, what is so? I think by the sounds of it, all of us have the same sort of experience with this movie, which is I had it on VHS growing up and watched it a million times. You know, it's like, you know, it's like. It's something that I guess, you know, I'm going to sound old right now, but it's got a certain charm to it, is that kids, my kids, they don't kind of understand that only 4 channels, most of it's playing shit you don't want to watch. What are you going to do? I had like a collection of 100 VHS tapes, right? Most of them recorded off television, you know, by jumping up and stopping to get out the commercials if you're watching it on one of the 2 channels that has commercials. But it's that kind of thing that, well, what am I going to do? You know, I've got nothing to do right now. Okay, I'm going to watch Beetlejuice for the 100th time.
Yeah.
Is that the same for you guys?
Not so much as the recording it off of the TV, though we did do that. It was just, I think at my age, it was just on cable so frequently, but it was just I remember it's such a fascinating thing because you watch this movie at a certain age and like we said, it can be scary. And then you watch it as you get older and you're like, oh, it's not that scary. It's kind of funny. And then you watch it as you get even older. And you're like, this movie's kind of horny too. Like, there's like some like graphic stuff that's not for kids in this movie.
The stuff you miss. I mean, and it's been, we talk about a lot on this podcast is, watching with fresh eyes. But I've talked about as well is coming back to a movie and it being different because you're older. It's like, you know, when you're a kid watching the Goonies, you're like, you're riding along with the kids. Your dad watching the Goonies, you're like, oh my God, these children are in danger.
They're not wearing seatbelts.
Right. It's like, and then you're watching Beetlejuice. And of course, when I watched Beetlejuice as a kid, I'm the same age, if not a bit younger, and I'm, you know, like attracted to Winona Ryder as a kid, just going, oh, she's cool, and she's dark, and she's whatever, and her parents...
Now you're attracted to Alec Baldwin, sure.
Right, 100%. Still attracted to Harrison Ford in What Lies Beneath. Mrs. was listening to the podcast, she was listening to that episode, and she's like, Google that, I need to see this picture. Show me Harrison Ford in this movie. I'm like, oh, I've got it saved.
It's my screensaver,
Yeah, for sure.
But like in this case, you know, I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm like Jeffrey Jones. I'm Catherine O'Hara at
Yeah.
this point, and I'm watching it. So it's a different movie. And like you said, yeah, Ryan, it's like the sort of underlying, not even underlying, the blatant horniness.
Yeah,
of
doesn't he like
Beetlejuice.
he's talking to Alec Baldwin's character and he like reaches back and grabs Gina Davis and you hear
Yeah.
that weird
And you get that,
sound
yeah,
like
that sort of sound effect kind
Yeah.
of thing. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I was sitting there, definitely no intimacy coordinator for that scene.
No, this movie, like every time I watch it though, I'm struck by how little Beetlejuice there is in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
always throws me off. I always think of him, he's kind of like the Slimer of this movie. He's actually in very little, but is like the bigger deal that's always been made about
That's so
it.
true, yeah.
I had
It's
that
strange.
exact same thought last night or this morning when I was
Yeah.
watching, because I was like, going, okay, I mean, like, we're halfway through the movie. We've seen him for barely 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's only in the very end of the movie that he's there for about 15 straight minutes. So I'm with you, Will, going, wow, for a movie called Beetlejuice, who's on the center of the poster, who's starring Michael Keaton, yeah, he's like, oh, he's also in this movie. That's what I was like.
Yeah.
I was really thinking about this sequel that's coming up, and I go, how are they going to do this?
I was going to say, let's speculate on how this movie has the most tedious uphill climb ahead of it. There's just I just can't see a way in which this movie
They're going to
is
spend
any good.
$100 million to digitally de-age Beetlejuice so we can do his origin story. That's what they're going to do. We're going to get the juice of the beetle. We're going to figure that out. I mean, I've heard, right? So Catherine O'Hara, I don't watch trailers, but I've heard Catherine O'Hara's back. I hear Winona Ryder's back, and I believe what's his face, the young lady that played Wednesday.
Adam Driver.
Yes, a young female Adam Driver.
Oh my God, I was
played
just talking about it.
Jenna Ortega.
Jenna
yeah.
Ortega, the most
course.
obvious piece of casting in the history of like.
You're
Well,
right.
she was as Wednesday because Tim Burton
and
directed
Tim
all
Burton.
those.
That's right. We
which
talked
I
about
can't
it
wait
on
to-
another.
it's wild.
So
and I didn't watch that, so I mean, and people loved it, so I know how like popular that
I
show
liked it.
was.
and she's
It's
great.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's really good as
Yeah.
Wednesday. She
It-
definitely like gets into the vibe. Oh, Will's got a finger up. Go.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it did make a big mistake, which is Christina Ricci should have made
Right.
my fantasy come true and have her play Morticia Adams.
Oh.
That would have been the hottest thing on the planet Earth. At least she's in the show, but
She's great
I-
in the show, but yeah, I can see that her as Morticia would be good. But I will say, Catherine Zeta-Jones also a good choice.
Yeah,
she's great. But I've always been in love with Christina Ricci, and then just
Yeah.
making her my favorite fictional MILF
But
would be
not
the
casting
best.
Oscar Isaac as Gomez Adams.
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
mistake.
Luis
Big
Guzman
mistake.
was a strange choice, but
Yeah.
he's great in it as well.
He's
And-
good. Yeah, it's a good
and-
cast. It's
and it was
a cute show.
Fred
Fred-
Armisen is
Fred
Uncle
Armisen
Fester,
as-
right?
I did
wasn't-
like him.
I wasn't
I love
expecting
him in
it to
it.
work. I wasn't expecting
Yeah.
it to work as well as it did, and I was like, "Oh, he steals the movie." Like every time the show, but every time he turns up, he's got this fun little thing with Wednesday. They've got their own little sort of like friendship kind of stuff. That like proper good. Would recommend it. Give it a watch.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the plot or the point of this movie even was, because if I remember correctly, originally they were going to do a sequel many years ago where it was like Beetlejuice on an island, like in Hawaii or something, like on a tropical.
Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. That's what would be the
Just
name.
like hard ticket to Beetlejuice.
Hard beetle to juice.
Just imagine what kind of like frisbees he'd be throwing. You
Oh,
know,
shit.
what kind of razors those would be.
Hold on, hold on.
Oh,
Man.
don't tempt me to watch that movie again, Will.
Just two Beetlejuices get into a hot tub and they have amazing racks. It'd be great.
But the thing about that's right. We need to get in the hot tub.
If you don't like, if you
I
listen to
think-
this podcast thinking we just talk about movies, but if there's one takeaway you should have from listening to us, it's that we are constantly pitching better movie
Yes,
ideas.
Yes.
That's
All of
ultimately the
Hollywood's
goal.
financial problems would be solved
Yeah.
if they just listen to our
just
pitches.
get rid of David Zaslav and hire us to run Warner Bros.
He's just dumping our podcast into an algorithm, into AI, and it's just spitting out billion-dollar projects, and we're just we're sitting here, man.
Man.
We should be billionaires.
Yeah.
But it's like, so then also because they're calling the sequel Beetlejuice. Are they setting up a trilogy? And do we want to die on the inside right now?
Yeah, that's it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, well now you're basically promising a third movie, and is that what you want to do? Michael Keaton, who I'm sure is great in it, but the age he's at is like, is this what we want? I don't know.
Give me old man Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
I don't give a shit.
That's right, but is he supposed to age? I thought he was dead. So, but it's like it's 1988, so this is almost 30 years after the fact we are returning to, and it's like, is it going to be a Lego sequel? I mean, look, don't get me wrong, because there are ones that work, you know, like Top Gun Maverick, and obviously Twisters, which I haven't seen yet, but it's definitely going to be the greatest movie ever made. But like, and there are other ones.
They're doing crazy viral promotion for it in Nebraska right now.
Oh,
you know,
dude.
God.
we were talking about it right before we started recording. As you guys are probably aware,
as we always do.
I'm wearing my Texas shirt. But yes, in Texas we've been having storms even this morning. Before this morning, we were woken up, massive storm, but we've been having tornadoes. But yeah, Omaha, Nebraska. Oh my goodness, some of that footage is terrifying. And it looks just like the movie Twister, the greatest movie ever.
Yeah. It's just Glenn Powell out there with no shirt on, just walking around. Yep,
being
that's
Glenn
Twister.
Powell about things. So one of the best scenes in the whole movie is the really, really fascinating when they all start.
Yeah.
You know, so it's they all sit down for dinner where Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis decide, all right, let's go mess with them. Catherine O'Hara's just singing, looks amazing. The design of the whole thing, it's just, that is one of my favorite, random, best executed, and the way that scene ends with
the shrimp hands.
all of the hands come out, grab them, and they throw them back. That is filmmaking.
There's
right
one
there.
throwaway line that's like, I didn't even know I could do the calypso.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Great. And they're all just like because it's never it's established that like one, they don't know how they can get the living people to see them. It's all contained in this book.
Yeah.
So I mean, let me pitch you a better show idea. Just make a series that's based on the book itself, like how the book's created, whatever. Because that's a little more fascinating. I think there's a little more history there. But the fact that they orchestrate this whole dance number, they can now possess these people, make them sing, they can possess the objects, the plate, like it's never established, and it doesn't fucking matter.
No,
it's so entertaining.
And the other one so there's that scene, and then there's also the character design, execution, and reality of when they try to make themselves look scary. So like Alec Baldwin just shoves his hand inside his head, and then like pops, you know, he's like with eyes on his fingers, and then Gina Davis just rips her head open and puts the eyes on it. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it still looks amazing.
The Sam Raimi-esque gag is when he's trying to undo that, and he's just like fiddling with like the
stuck. I like when he goes to look at his wife and like he has his glasses and he uses his eyeball fingers to look through the
and he's like, oh, good. Yeah, that looks pretty cool.
That's good. Yeah.
Just those little touches. But then like, it's
her eyeballs moving in her mouth, like back and forth. And that's what like that's what the toys were. I remember like those were the two figures, right?
That's it, that in itself. And it's like, so every little bit, like this is a 90-minute, no wasted time, and like you're saying, Ryan, nothing explained, and no one cares. No one cares.
Nothing about the sandworms. He's like, I mean, you get these just like the little history of like, you guys ever been to Saturn? Sandworms, you know, like, so they're just transporting to fucking Saturn. Like, all right.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. The rules of the afterlife here don't really make any, and I think that's good. Like that they're not taking the time, because again, I love the fact that the people who are running the afterlife are just constantly annoyed and behind on paperwork.
It's the fucking bureaucracy, man.
Time to explain it. Like that's this thing that cracks me up.
For sure.
We don't understand the rules, and like the characters who know are like, we don't have time to explain it.
Yeah.
Like,
we've been here for fucking millennia.
And it's like, what a shitty thing. Oh, what happens? You die, and then you spend the rest of your life working in an office for the recently deceased.
Right.
Well, then you get that one even darker scene where they're walking through to Juno's office, and the janitor, who's just the fucking janitor there, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
imagine dying and then for eternity you're still a janitor. It'd be like that is like
the
stuff.
The little bit, it's a bit of a background gag, but it's the guy that's like hanging from a noose, going through, and he's just delivering paperwork.
The one shot I always thought was so cool is when they're in Juno's office, you can see through her window, and there's just people sitting in a movie theater, like watching from in, and it's like skeletons. It's just a guy eating popcorn. I always thought that was kind of cool.
That's right. There is just you can sit. I'm honestly, I could do the whole podcast on just this movie because there's a, like I said, every time you mention something, I want, oh yeah, that was so cool. I want to talk about that. It's like, I guess, I think we're all feeling the same way as like, wow, what a great movie. It was so great to see it again, and we're all carrying this anxiety over the sequel.
It just there's just no way I could ever live up to it. Gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it, but
yeah, for sure.
I'm managing my expectations.
Actually, very quickly, this is going to date the episode, but currently, right now, there's a few movies out in theaters that Mrs. and I desperately want to see. One of them being the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Will, you've seen that? That's a thumbs up.
Yeah.
The other one,
a lot of fun.
I'm really wanting to see, but I think it's going to freak me out, especially considering I live in Texas. But it's Civil War. Has anyone seen Alex Garland's Civil War yet?
Not yet. I'm going to try to get to it in the next week or so.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what. See, things could get interesting. Just FYI, fans of US Movie Podcast, but I am going to be in the same state as Ryan and maybe Will all at the same time. So
we're gonna try.
If we can, I tell you what, I've had an idea about what we can do. Ryan, you're gonna love it. I'm basically inviting a bunch of people over to your house, but like, there's gonna be. I don't know what episode we're gonna have next week, but it could be a potentially quite a fun one if we can all be in the same place at the same time. But yeah,
definitely.
Those are two movies that are very much on my radar, and I really want to see them. Anyway, that was my little aside. Should I go? Anything else quickly? Like I said, I could talk about this movie forever, but like any other sort of like parts you want to talk about? Like I always thought, like the little the detail of when Beetlejuice is in the miniature town, that you can see the rubber of the
I thought that was so cool
thing, and when he starts, you're digging the grave, they're going through cardboard.
I like that.
That kind of detail was always so cool.
The little Zagnut, those weren't like candy bars when I was a kid, so I don't remember.
Right.
And then they pick him up and he just shoots out the little. There's just everything.
Is it implied that he's eating the bugs? Like, why is that a thing?
Yeah.
Like he eats the flies.
That bit, come to me,
little buddy.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about how just incredible Michael Keaton is in this role.
Yeah.
So much so that there's no one else that could ever. Maybe like a Robin Williams, maybe. But no one has that.
But
kind
he
of
would be
darker
Robin
energy.
Williams Beetlejuice, whereas it's not Michael Keaton Beetlejuice. It's Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
It's like the Michael Keaton of it's this. Yeah. It's just he's being bonkers and he's crazy, and then
it's great.
He switches up his voices and stuff, and he gets all normal for a second. He goes, well, I went to Juilliard, and then I decided that I love it. It's just
every single time I see it,
they go qualified. Just so good. He's just such a great live action Looney Tunes character.
In
this movie, he's fantastic.
The practical gags towards the end too. I love when they bring the Dietzes back and they come through the clothing again. Just the practical work in this is so good, and then. She's trying to say Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. And the first one, he puts a zipper on her mouth. She opens it up. And she says it again. And then he throws the metal plate. She's trying to pull this thing off. It's fucking crazy.
And that bit where Alec Baldwin, he goes, "Brr," and his
jaw just falls off. Take a hike. And he just drops it. Again, his powers in this world, none of it is ever established. There's no rules. I think that which kind of plays into the enjoyment of this. You just never know what's going to happen. It's just pure chaos. I love it.
It's fantastic. I'm also going to throw out, just FYI, if Ollie suddenly stops being on this podcast, it's because there's been a lightning strike and it kills all the power, but there is definitely a storm outside my window right now. So if alarms start going off and just FYI.
I was going to say, it's looks like it's getting dark over there.
Yeah, it is. That's how I'm noticing. It looks honestly, guys, it's 1 PM if you're watching this podcast. It is dark outside. So all right, it's getting...
Well, we have said Beetlejuice more than 3 times.
Shit! So, oh my God, that's what's
going
happened.
on.
So I'll tell you what. Look, like I said, let's bounce over to the Stepford Wives. I want to talk about the Stepford Wives for a sort of again. I'm seeing
interesting movie
with Beetlejuice in as much as pretty efficient movie, but also nothing explained. You're very much experiencing this through the eyes of Catherine Ross. Everything else is just you've got to pick up little sort of snippets. So. First of all, my question I always like to ask, so who had seen this movie before?
No. I'm familiar with it,
right.
From a standpoint, I'd even ask my parents, like I mentioned, I'm like, oh, I'm watching the Stepford Wives, and they're like, oh, all right, yeah, cool, it's fine.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't like a huge. I guess it wasn't like, to them at least, it wasn't a huge deal. But the idea of that movie is still so prescient, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I was sort of explaining it to Mrs. going, yeah, I know, it was like it's kind of dark, kind of 70s, but it's also like very much sort of, I think, a commentary because at one point you get the Catherine Ross and Paula Prentice, like her buddy, and there's, oh, I messed around a little bit with women's lib in New York, and and then so it's very much kind of like that, it's women's rights and it's men
Right.
Mhm.
looking to control women and fit them into this certain thing. Honestly, it reminded me of something I just saw. I think it was on Twitter just this week, and it really struck me as like a holy shit. But it was the generation of women in America who were born into a country where they have full autonomy over their life, work, bank accounts, and their body still hasn't been born yet. It doesn't even exist still in 2024, and we're watching this movie from 1975, and it's like it just starts off kind of like you guys said. It starts off with a long cross-country road trip of 60 miles, like where they go to Connecticut. We realize, this guy, they're living in a building. We pick up, they've got two kids. You've got the doorman. He's saying, "Oh, I'll miss you guys." All right, cool. Context. We also get that bit where like, and I like it, where's the guy walking with like a mannequin, and she decides, oh, I'm going to take 75 pictures of that. So we get the fact that she's like, oh, I'm a real, what does she use the term? Shutter something or other. She's like,
Shutterbug.
yeah, something like that. She's like, I'm just always taking pictures. But it's also that I do like that that's where the movie goes. Is
Yeah.
that mannequin, that moment, is just that little just kind of, this is where the movie's going.
Classic New York. It's a guy carrying around a naked mannequin. Honestly, you'll see it all the time.
But that's the thing is, that's exactly what. And so when the guy comes down, the husband in this case, who's just everyday guy, just a lawyer, it's like he goes, "Dad, we just saw a guy carrying a naked lady," and he goes, "That's why we're moving to Connecticut." It's like...
Where nothing
'Cause this
bad
place is
happens
too awesome.
ever. Yeah.
You get it's just it's kind of, what was that? It was like the Edgar Wright movie, the Alien Edgar Wright, the third one of the Cornetto trilogy.
World's End.
Yeah. Same thing, but different. But it's definitely got that Stepford Wives vibe of like,
Yeah, you can
you're
definitely
coming
see his
into small
inspiration
town,
from this. Yeah.
and everyone's in on this thing except for you.
Right.
And it's like, you see it as they pull into town, you watch the cop watches them go by, and he kind of has this like knowing nod. And you're like, oh, okay. And then like,
Yeah.
sort of like he's there, like, the meeting of the neighbors and stuff like that. But you realize there was just this moment about 15 minutes in where you realize the husband already knew the guy. And like those little things that the wife is throwing out, like, you didn't really ask. Like, you made it seem like we had a conversation about this, but
Yeah.
you'd already done it and you'd already put a payment on the house. And I'm like, look at this house.
Yeah.
It's insane. It is beautiful. And, it's like, it's what a great place. But just this little drip, 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 drip.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't spell it out for you. It's definitely like a psychological thriller in that sense.
Yeah.
I do feel like it could have been executed a little bit better. I think, Will, you'd even said like, this movie could do with like a proper remake. Like, I would like to see Edgar Wright's Stepford Wives or something like that.
Or just a scary one. Like, so, like I said, when Frank Oz did it, they leaned into sort of like the comedy of it and the sort of the wackiness of it. Whereas this is very insipid. This is very...
it's dark. It's
very,
almost mean, like...
And, and you see like the way that these different husbands, as these wives start, becoming the robots or, whatever it is that they are.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's never properly established.
Yeah, it's all context clues from you're driving around the town, and it's like robotics and bioengineering and coding and like the artists.
And big tits factory, sure.
Right.
Airbags, exactly.
Yeah.
I just found that so silly, but also like it just again is pretty on the nose for a bunch of men that look at women the way these men do. And want women to just be subservient and controlling and just like ready. Like, two
It's awesome.
two great bits. Like when I say great bits, but like it's crazy. But the bit where she's trying to go over and meet the Van Zants, and you see the guy from Daryl come up and he just grabs his wife's boobs, and then just like, and she goes, "Oh well," and just starts heading inside for a good fucking.
Yep.
And the other one where they pop by like
Yeah.
the pharmacist's house, and you hear the woman upstairs going, "Oh yes, Fred, you're the king. You are Superman." Oh,
And they
give it
stay
to
there
me."
a long
Way
time.
too long.
Way too long.
Yeah.
They
It's weird.
break into a house and then violate these people's like just privacy, and they're like going, "Oh," and then they were just joking about it for the rest
Yeah.
of their like point.
I
That's the
think-
guy. That's the guy that was
Yeah.
fucking.
Yeah. You remember from before?
I broke into their house.
That's
like-
Frank the King. Yeah.
I like that they had to make her friend such a wild card in that sense.
Yeah.
Like I think they really I think all the
God,
female
her friend was
characters.
awesome. My
Yeah,
God.
I think all the female characters in this had their own like really unique takes. Like their the friend they go to play tennis with, who's this absolutely gorgeous woman who's married to this complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
So much so that it's hard to say like when they're being turned or what's causing that. All they know is that they go off on this little retreat, and when they come back, like
Yeah, you're
what
talking like
what
that's-
happens to them? Are they programmed? Like, are they keeping the real ones prisoners? Like, what happens? You never really know.
Yeah, it's kind of good. See, like, so you have Catherine Ross. She's stunning. I do believe
Smoke show.
that is
Gorgeous.
Mrs. Sam Elliott, the guy with the massive mustache.
Sam Elliott.
Yeah, that's his missus.
Oh,
Paula
hell yeah.
Prentice, the best friend, playing Bobby. She was fantastic. She turns
Great.
up,
Yes.
got that whole East Coast loud New York. She's so funny and so brash and just so. And then the other one, I think is Tina Louise. She was playing Charmaine, who I believe was Ginger from Gilligan's Island. That I'm looking up as well. So
Oh.
you get all these ladies, and they're big personalities, and they're stunning and they're beautiful. And then you kind of got the other ladies, the other Stepford ladies, who were just kind of, just very, I just cleaning, and I'm having a drink, and
They sound like they're in a commercial, right? They
Yeah.
have that.
Right.
So her whole goal is like, well, if the men are going to have their men's club, I want to have why don't we have a women's club where we can all get together and vent our problems and just talk about, just connect and talk.
yeah.
And all the other women are like, why do we need that? I'm
But
like,
it-
this taking away from my cleaning time.
And it becomes this fascinating, like, it's almost like one of the women is a commercial. Remember that bit where she's going,
Yes.
I didn't
yes.
think that this cleaner would work as well as it does, but it gets thinking, and the other women are going,
Have
wow.
you tried doing this with that? Like, just like I haven't.
you
And
go,
they're
It's very almost like
literally
Truman Show.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 very Truman Show.
Or even like Pleasantville, like something
Yeah.
like that that just feels just off, and which just adds to the unease of this film.
Yeah,
you know?
and I liked it. That's what I
Yeah.
was enjoying about it, is I think far too much now gets over-explained. And I understand, like, there's sometimes you're like, oh, it can be frustrating. But in this case, it gives you just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough of, that's weird. And then you get like the one where the woman's kind of like, oh, if I don't get the recipe for this, I'm just going to die. And she's going around the party,
Oh my god, yeah.
saying everything.
Yeah.
And then, of course, so you've got the men's group. They're just such a bunch of idiots. And you've got this one guy, Diz.
Diz.
Jokes
'Cause he
about
used to
Diz.
work at Disney, the animatronic.
Patrick, Patrick O'Neill. And he just seems creepy. He
Yeah.
dresses
Yeah.
creepy. He's got creepy hair. And by far, the best character moment / creepiest part of the entire movie is where she's in the kitchen and she turns around and he's watching her and he goes, I like watching women do menial tasks or whatever. I like watching women clean up. And I go, what the fuck?
And then she's like, well, you're in
Yeah.
the perfect town. Yeah. Is that the same guy that was doing the sketching? Or is it
No,
a different guy.
No,
that's not the
it's a
guy. So
different
he's the
guy.
guy that's kind of running the show.
different, similar, creepy guy. Got it.
Yeah,
Right.
so then exactly. And then you see, that's the meaning. So
Which one are you?
they all come over and it's like, this guy is sketching her. And then you've got the guy with the stutter who's like, I'm fascinated by accents. So just read the entire dictionary.
Yeah.
This, which is like, I'd have been like, fuck off. But then you get that the bit where all the men come in and look at his bedroom and they go, It was just all those little bits, those little creepy things that
Yeah.
all of these guys are in on it. All of these guys are creeps. It's one big giant conspiracy. The fact that this guy's moved his family here, you know, to get in on this, and then you see the regret or the moment of these other husbands where you've seen, you know, we see this guy come out and he's looking distraught. He can barely drive. He's a mess. And it's Charmaine's husband. But then the next scene, she's obviously a Stepford wife, but he's dealing with the fact that they just fucking murdered his wife and have created this copy for him. It's creepy. The more you
it's so dark. It really is so dark.
It gets darker and darker. He tears up her tennis court because he's always wanted.
By the way, it looks like they were really doing that. It looks like they were really shredding up a fucking tennis court. Yeah, that was wild.
I was also thinking about it was a very impractical tennis court because there was no fences around it. So anytime the ball is just going to go off into the trees, you're never going to find it. Yeah, so like
says the guy who went to boarding school.
Did I mention that?
Look at my tennis courts have fences.
I was on the tennis team. Shut up. It was just and the drip, and then we get to like Bobby. So we all kind of realize that you had, and it's done very well. They give us the little breadcrumbs of, oh, I moved here 3 months ago. Oh, I moved here 2 months ago. Oh, I just moved here. So we see the time going by. We see at the 4-month stage, everyone's getting sort of becoming a Stepford wife, and that the creep of Catherine Ross is feeling it. She knows she feels like she's going crazy, but she's not. And you have that one scene with the psychologist, and she's like, I'm not crazy, but I sound crazy, but I'm not crazy. I don't think I'm gonna. And she goes, we'll talk about this next week, because I'm not gonna be here. It'll look like me, but it's not gonna be me. And it's like, it's just that sort of foreboding and that dread and the betrayal of the husband, you know, like this, that it's so dark, that then sets up that last scene of we're finally inside the giant haunted house kind of thing. He's got control over it. It's classic. It's so dark. You can never see enough. She's trying to rescue her kids. It's raining. It's just, and you finally get that big moment of coming face to face with herself and the creepy fucking eyes. Really good movie. Really good movie, this.
Yeah, I mean, the whole movie climax is like right at the last 5-10 minutes of it.
Yeah,
it's wild for a movie to do that. Usually, you know, you have these ebb and flows, and this just kind of slowly ramps up and then it ends. You know, like an interesting way
ends to do it. Very abruptly.
Oh yeah,
then you get the epilogue, the dark. It's bright and colorful and everything's great, but it's fucked up because everyone is dressed the same and they're all just. Hello, Barbara. Hello, Charlie.
They're just at a Whole Foods in Scottsdale. It's
right.
That's really all it is.
Too bloody true. I mean, it's just like I understand why this movie I think has got an enduring legacy. Why it became a cult film. Why they remade it. Why, when any of us are in a place that's just a bit too perfect or the women are just a bit too tight, everyone's like, oh, it's so Stepford wives. Even without seeing the movie. Like, none of us had seen it until this week, but we're still referencing.
It's in our lexicon. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's just, it's, I think it was, I wasn't expecting it to be quite as good as it was. I was like, and it snuck up on me. How well made, like I said, you know, it's as I was going on and talking about it now and just realizing that they gave us just enough at all the times, but never gave us all of it. Like that bit,
if they
stabs Bobby, but there's no blood.
Yeah, that which is fucking crazy. Like the realization that her best friend just immediately flipped is,
and then she's like, "But look at my breasts. They've it's just like
look how happy I am." Yeah,
that would have actually been a great PS of the movie. Like, you know, the end of the movie is this: she actually meets up with a psychiatrist, and the way she knows she's been replaced, she looks at her rack and she's like, "Wait a minute, that's not the same lady."
Yeah,
but
that would be a Kaiser Sose moment.
Oh shit!
They even literally do that in a moment like so. There's a bit later with Catherine Ross where she meets her doppelganger. Her doppelbanger, I guess, is so,
nice.
But like,
nice,
but she's
what they call me in high school.
You know, you can see, but like throughout the whole movie, as much as we joked about it, she's very 70s. She's never wearing a bra. She's always got this sort of top on. She's, you know, she's got a smaller chest. And then later on, they're like, you can see that they've made this model, but she has bigger boobs.
Yeah, it's like the pinup from Dead Poet Society.
Yes.
Dead Poet Society.
They all look like that. Yeah.
But it was like, but it's a specific actual plot point.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's the fact that it's not played for laughs, it's just played for, isn't that fucked up?
Yeah.
You know? And it is, but it doesn't hit you over the head with it. You're just sitting there going, oh, these guys suck.
So if you're like,
Yeah.
if you're saying like, if they were to remake this movie again, but do like a gender swap on it, where it's the husbands that are becoming the robots, they would just have like massive hogs. Like that's just
they're all wearing like gray sweatpants.
just a bunch of
Yes.
tripods walking around.
Yeah.
It's a war of the
They'd
worlds.
all be Michael Fassbender and Shame.
Yes.
Though I did point out that this movie is technically a prequel to Daryl.
Yes.
Go on.
Considering the neighbor, the Van Zant neighbor, is the scientist from Daryl.
Oh shit.
And it goes on to, like Daryl is this, data analyzing robot youth life form. This is where he learned how to create the child version. He's experimented on his wife. Now we go years later.
It was weird that Daryl had huge tits.
Yeah. That threw me
I
off.
was wondering about that. That makes sense now. Yeah.
And that's how he was controlling when he's playing pole position. He's controlling it with his boobs. He's manipulating his nipples like joysticks. Yeah, that was the director's cut. If you guys didn't see,
It's on the 4K if you pick that up.
Particular version of Daryl. I was seeing Brian De Palma was initially going to direct. I could
That'd be cool.
Oh.
see that.
Yeah.
Back then, 70s De Palma and stuff like that. But like, yeah, I mean, just anything else about this movie you want to talk about or get into? Like, go for it.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's very much a product of its film-wise, a product of its time. So if you're watching this, and I do recommend you should watch this movie. It's great, but
Yeah.
it's very much a 70s film. Like it's paced quite a bit differently than you would expect. It's a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, but that just adds to the unease of the film, which I think is really nice.
This is interesting. So I'm reading here. After the movie was released, there was a feminist demonstration against it, decrying it as being sexist. I'm like, talk about missing the point. It's a feminist movie. It's a danger. It's like it's a warning almost. It's very
You can't
much
burn your bras if you're not wearing them.
and it's like, to the point that a protester hit director Brian Forbes over the head with her umbrella, and I'm just like, you missed the point of this. This movie is supposed to be a warning. It's a dark sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's surprising to me.
I could see it just the way our modern like film Twitter side thing kind of goes. I can see how easily misinterpreted this film could be.
Yeah, it's that kind of thinking where like you feature any kind of movie where there's villains doing anything. Just the fact that they're in the movie doing villainous is like the fact that they're doing anything in the movie that's like, well, that's an endorsement of the behavior. The fact that it's in the movie, it's like, no, it's a movie about how these guys suck and they're all creeps and weirdos.
And another part, and I remember I actually had this moment where I was like, oh, wait a minute. But you were talking about, the more modern remake, or if you could flip it or gender flip it. It's already happened. It's Get Out.
Magic Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But yeah, Jordan Peele's Get Out is that kind of like you're taking
very
that,
much.
you're flipping it on its head, you're adding a racial element, this whole sort of thing. It says you get that element again, and it's like, yeah, Jordan Peele going, oh yeah, no, 100%.
Oh right, see, yeah, that's true.
It's like I took that, and messed with it. But that's a very, very, I can't believe I didn't think about that until like, when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember. That movie, I've only seen that once. That was so good.
Yeah,
that was a great one.
That's a creepy bloody movie. Anything else? I would say, so this is one of those movies, big hole in my movie watching sort of history. And I know that we have people that watch along with us, or they watch movies. This is one I'm like, oh yes, it's on Tubi for free with commercials. It's not going to affect it, to be honest, in any way. But this is watch it. I think this is an important movie to watch.
Do they censor the end of this movie? Because at every turn of this movie, you think you're going to see a titty pop out, but you really don't. Like it's very much like on the.
It's the only mark against the movie, really. When you think about it.
But it's it's not at all. There's no sensory. Like so, Tubi is just it's just a convenient way to watch a movie that I don't want to pay for.
Right.
I can suck up some commercials. They're not that bad. I'll tell you what.
Speaking of which, scare us on Tubi right now.
Good call. What I like about Tubi is that they time their commercials well. It's
Okay,
not
okay.
like it's not an algorithm. Someone has decided where the commercials should go. So someone has watched that movie go now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So it's like it's always a bit where a scene is transitioning or you've finished something instead of it just popping up in the
Mid
middle.
dialogue, yeah.
Yeah, it's well done. I will give them that.
What they
Roger
should do is, have you seen I forget where it is, where they edited the beer like the
Yes.
like
Oh,
Argentina beer
That's
commercials.
so funny. The Chilean
Yeah.
Star Wars joke.
Right? Oh my God, that's great.
Everyone, all
Put
the
that in
different
more
versions of
films.
that
That's
have
how
been.
Tubi, if you're listening, that's how you should be doing all your ads.
All right,
Just
so
yes.
to
mostly-
anyone that's watching or listening that hasn't seen this, doesn't live on film Twitter like the three of us do, there was a very sort of famous tweet that came out talking about how, in Chile, they couldn't cut from commercials, so they would edit commercials in. And the thing is, it's so well done that no one knows if it's a joke or not. And it's,
Yeah.
the thing is, I could easily look it up. I'd prefer not knowing.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's better just going, is it real?
Yeah.
But it's, it's like a scene with Obi-Wan and Luke, and they're in Tatooine, and he goes to get the lightsaber, but then he opens it, and it's this Chilean
a
beer.
cool-
And so there's been all these other versions of it now. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's God bless the internet for crazy creative.
I don't even know if that beer exists anymore,
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
man,
Yeah.
I would love to have one.
I
Yes.
don't care. It's
Fantastic.
It is worth it for me.
Very
But
clever.
yes, this is a movie that I would say you should watch. Box office, $4 million. Doesn't say how much it cost to make. Probably about $12 by the feel of it at times.
Mhm.
It's kind of like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, kind of
Ooh.
like kind of vibe. It's kind of like movie, but
I would love to see
I
Garth
wish.
Marenghi's version of this story because it would
Yeah.
be so sexist
Oh
and
my
so
God.
bonkers. It would be fantastic.
yeah, so this is really interesting. The more I'm looking into it, so initial reaction by feminist groups was not favorable. One studio screening, hisses, groans, guffaws.
My
And it's
pearls.
And it's like the director going, if anything, it's anti-men. I agree. I definitely didn't get any vibes like about this being like
Yeah.
an
But you
actual-
could see men getting the wrong impression from this movie, is what I was saying. Like,
Mhm.
they're definitely not played as being like the good guys. They're absolutely
no, but you look at again Twitter again, and it's like Elon Musk is probably making these fucking sex robots. He's like, these
Yeah,
guys
he's-
were onto something.
Yeah.
He's watching this movie like, this is a good idea. We should
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, he would just retweet the whole movie with interesting,
Yeah.
thinking emoji. God, that guy's a
Mhm.
prick.
Yeah.
All right, moving on then. Let's move on from Stepford Wives. But yes, I would say watch it. It's not like, it's just subtle. It's slow. It's well made, well written. I'm like,
It's original too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the
Mhm.
first to kind of do it. It does feel like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 type of movie, but I mean that with aplomb. Like it's
yeah,
in the
and you
best way.
definitely
Yeah.
see if it was a bit cheaper and made with a bit more it's the what was the one with the giant spider
Giant
invasion?
spider invasion.
You're
yeah.
right. So if it had
Yes.
just been a little bit more giant spider invasion, there would have been 20 pairs of tits.
If that spider had 8 tits instead of
Yeah,
legs. sure,
exactly.
yeah.
It would have gone into like the more exploitation, whereas this one is very much kind
Hold
of.
on, I'm writing this down.
Yeah. I can hear Will's erection.
Zaslav, I've got an idea.
He's got it. No, to justify his $48 billion bonus that he's getting. But yeah, no, this is a good movie. This is a movie. I
Yeah,
feel like,
I
and
enjoyed
honestly, I feel like maybe misunderstood in its time, and I think just as on the nose now as it ever was. But one more movie to get to, the one that we're gonna see. But let's talk about the Family Stone. Let's jump into that. Let's jump into. So, like I said, as we were mentioning earlier, you guys saying, "Oh, it's a perfectly good movie." I think it's so much better than I remembered it being. And kind of like I was touching on is I don't think I was mature enough to get this movie. I think I totally, like I was saying earlier, that the underlying thing is that, Diane Keaton is dying. Which is why I think in some ways it's like, oh, it's not so much of a comedy, it's kind of a drama comedy.
Diane Keaton.
Right.
Yeah, it never goes full tilt like rom-com. It's not a rom-com. While at the same time being a double rom-com because you got the two brothers, you got the two sisters, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that also kind of threw me.
That also, yeah, that was so. It felt jarring to me that and again, I'm sorry if it's never established that he had met Sarah Jessica Parker's sister before, and they kind of had like a connection, but almost seemingly out of nowhere, he's like, I'm with the wrong sister. And then they just spark up this whole thing. Feels so wrong, like just off.
Yeah, that
No,
was yeah.
I remember it bothering me more the first time I saw it. And I tell you, like, and I also remember back when I used to watch trailers and remember everything. I remember the trailer for this movie marketing it a lot more on the little snippets of funny, like where Sarah Jessica Parker is like, "I don't care what you think," and it's Rachel McAdams goes, "Oh, sweetie, of course you do," and the bit where it was insinuated in the trailer that Luke Wilson shags Sarah Jessica Parker. And one of my favorite bits is her getting caught in bed by Craig T. Nelson, and she's just like, like But to be honest, that's the only real sort of comedy bits in the movie. The rest of it is family.
Yeah,
it feels very real. So very quickly, if you've never seen the movie, it's a Christmas movie where Dermot Mulroney brings his super uptight girlfriend Sarah Jessica Parker, who to quote Ferris Bueller, pardon my French, but if you stuck a lump of coal up our ass in 2 weeks, you'd have a diamond. She's like that kind of uptight. But it becomes just this whole it's home for the holidays. It's a family thing. It's like any of those sort of stuff. It's all set up the same way. But I will say it's like instead of it being a cast of people we don't know, just get a generically handsome this or generically handsome that or this, whatever. It's Diane Keaton, Craig T. Nelson, Sarah Jessica Parker, Luke Wilson, Dermot Mulroney, Rachel McAdams, Claire Danes, and they're all killing it. In my opinion, I thought
2 Keatons this week. Woo.
but I thought one, the casting was fantastic, but I also thought they felt very natural. What did you guys think?
I think so. Everyone was, operating on a high level, and it just all felt very familiar to me. Like I've never seen this movie, but I feel like I've seen this movie 100 times. It's such a bizarre thing.
But in what way?
Just, like I said, it just hits all of the holiday family stingy notes, and maybe it is because we had just recently done Home for the Holidays that it felt very adjacent to that.
Yeah, we did a full-on Christmas episode.
Yeah, the dynamics of it all, it just felt like I was like, oh, this is just another kind of Christmassy movie. It's got Dylan McDermott Mulroney in it. It's got all the beats.
Oh, and that's right, because
got Craig T. Nelson it's got Craig T. Nelson as the dad again. Wasn't he the dad in something we just watched?
Yeah, The Proposal, the best movie.
That's it. Yeah.
That's right.
So again, like all of these, it's still it's a family movie, but it's still very much wrapped in this rom-com kind of bubble. Right? Though there is not a ton of comedy in this movie because it's kind of sad,
Yeah, it is. Well, what were you going to say?
I just, for one thing, the cast does have great chemistry. I think I had read they had spent a few weeks together actually before they started shooting to build up that camaraderie. So yeah, they all felt very natural around each other. But I think this movie, for me, it was weird. At the same time, it felt kind of like beat for beat, something we had seen before, but also that it was stuffed with a little too many ideas for anything to really land the way it was satisfying. Like the double, the brothers are falling for the other sister. It just felt like a little too much in a movie where the focus is supposed to be, this is Diane Keaton's last Christmas with her family, and they don't know it yet. It felt like, honestly, the Spider-Man 3 problem. There's a little too much going on for anything to land successfully.
See, I know what you mean.
Not that it's bad. None of it's bad. None of it's awful. And I, like I said, wouldn't even mind watching it again. Just doesn't land 100% right.
Okay. See, I know what you mean, but I disagree. So I was watching it going, oh, I like that. Everyone's got their own little thing going on. And we get it. They didn't add in, they could have very easily added in that the pregnant mum sister is also getting a divorce. I was waiting for that. And then the guy just turns up and he's just, there he is. There's my husband. But yeah, I was feeling like, oh no, I think everyone had was given something to do and everyone had fun doing it. And so yeah, you're right, is that they spent many weeks rehearsing and getting everybody together. So they had that vibe. Everyone's feeling very comfortable with each other, very much kind of like Knives Out. how that everyone in that family feels like a family, and it's because they were all just living together in the house anyway, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, the bit with the ASL, the way it's very sort of, sometimes they're throwing in the sign language to involve their brother kind of stuff. But I thought it was like like a real family. They definitely lived in that house. It felt lived in.
Yeah.
And then what you get is that sort of the slow drip, drip, drip of everyone sort of like, one sister finds out, then Luke Wilson finds out, because they're watching, Diane Keaton react, and you kind of see the subtle looks on their faces of like, what's up with mum? Like, why is mum being crazy?
Well, the introduction to her character too is she's sitting alone in that room before they all get to the house, setting up like the Christmas tree, and you have that. See, now knowing it, you're just like, oh, this is like she's having this realization that like, oh, this is her last Christmas,
And that's what I mean.
Tough.
That's why I think that this movie, I found it. I guess I kind of, like Mrs. and I, like I said, we both remember watching it. We went to see it. I don't think it was the movie that was promised. So that always bothers me. If a trailer sells a movie one way and you go and it's like, I don't mind like being surprised, but what I mean is like, hey, come see this funny movie, and you go watch it. Go, this isn't funny at all.
Yeah. You thought there were going to be more car chases? Sure.
Yeah. Why are people's boobs not getting bigger? Where's the giant spider? Like
that's what I'm saying.
Suggestion of incest, but what I liked is that, like there's a bit where Luke Wilson and Dermot Mulroney feel like brothers. They're chasing each other around.
Yeah.
It's like the bit where Luke Wilson's hanging out with his dad. What I also like is that, so let's go back. What you guys called it out is that the whole family is being a dick to Sarah Jessica Parker. They honestly are the most,
out of the gate.
Yeah,
out of the gate.
They're like the most obnoxious liberals that you can sort of like imagine. And then that I realized that the only normal sane person in the whole movie is Luke Wilson. He's just the guy he's just chill. He smokes weed. He's just, he's that brother, like with people we know him as. He just doesn't really have a sort of worry about these kind of things. And he's sitting there. He's the only one that treats Sarah Jessica Parker with respect. He sees completely through her neuroses. He's like, he's called everybody out on their stuff. But
immediate chemistry between them, and you're just like, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
It
doesn't. Yeah,
but it's kind of deserved.
And you get that scene where he like presses his dick up against the car window, and she's like, oh, okay.
in his gray sweatpants, and it's very well acted by Sarah Jessica Parker, because you see her look, and then her eyes like going down and up, and then back down and up, and like she's trying not to look, kind of thing. Was really good. And I also want to call out, I remember watching this movie, and Sarah Jessica Parker's character, I just didn't like her. And what I realize now watching it is how good Sarah Jessica Parker is in this movie.
You can see she felt so uncomfortable being like in this, so much so like you can interpret that like the dinner scene obviously is like the most famous kind of the blowout, and she just keeps putting her fucking foot in her mouth. And I'm watching this thing, I'm like, I get what she means, but she's
saying it so
delivering
badly.
She's because she's so pressured into wanting to fit in with this family, and she keeps saying the wrong things, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then you get Craig T. Nelson's blowout.
You get Dermot Mulroney as well. She goes, I'm not saying. He goes, maybe you should try saying what it is you do mean. Like that. Just, please, for the love of God, get to the point.
Yeah,
it's just getting bad.
Yeah, oof,
like she's playing her uptight, her neurotic. She's because I was sitting there going, oh man, I'm remembering Sex and the City, like the very first few seasons and stuff. But that she's Carrie Bradshaw, and she's relaxed and she's funny. And I was just remembering so many other like Sarah Jessica Parker sort of movies, like L.A.
Flight of the Navigator, sure,
right, Flight of the Navigator. But that I never gave her enough credit when I saw this movie the first time, and watching it the second time, I'm like, oh, this is great. The bit where she's crashing the car outside. And she just like, and she breaks into that kind of like that sort of small cry, and then the bit where she gets drunk and she meets Ben or whatever, the one that deflowered Rachel McAdams is
Mark Brandanowitz
from Parks and Rec, right? And so like and that's that bit where she's just being open and crazy and wild, and I'm like, I want to hold my hands up, and Sarah Jessica Parker, if you ever watch this podcast, I misjudged you in this movie, and you are top notch. I think she is absolutely top notch in this movie, and I think it often gets overlooked because she is so annoying.
It's almost got like a Sweet Home Alabama kind of vibe. When she has the blowout in like the bar, it's got that very like pivotal inciting incident, and that
Yeah, but
dinner
see,
scene.
Reese Witherspoon's a dick, whereas she's not a dick. Everyone else
No.
is treating her like a dick, and she's just a bit
That's
too
why I kept
uptight.
wondering too. I'm like, why are they all so mean?
Yeah, like I do understand the mother being like coming at it from that angle of like this is the last Christmas with the family and stuff,
Off her game.
But everyone else, especially Rachel McAdams' character, who doesn't have that going on, is also just incredibly mean to her, and the whole family for I don't know. There was just something about it where this family that's supposed to be this very liberal, hippie, like, loving family is just this woman who's not even a conservative, just like a rich businesswoman from New York. They're just like, I wish she would die. And it is just, it's like, it's too much. Like,
well, she does get called out for it. Rachel
she
McAdams,
gets called out for it, yeah.
And they do have that realization of we've been dicks. But yeah, it's at the beginning I go, I'm on Sarah Jessica Parker's side. You're all being assholes.
It's just like, why is everybody so mean? And it just bleeds into like little things like the car crash scene where they hear the crash and everybody's just kind of like, oh. Yeah. And I'm like, a car crash just happened, guys. Like, what are you all doing? Like, everybody's just kind of sitting. Like, Dylan Dermot McGrooney is just like, I can't take this. And he just goes off. And I'm like, your Beyonce was just in like, you just heard 2 crashes. And you're just like, man, I can't believe she put her foot.
He sacrificed.
She's dead outside, buddy. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think the family is just really upset that he had to sacrifice his lacrosse career to.
Yes, they're just very promising.
That, like, weirdly pops up like this. Yeah, it's just bits in this. I'm like, I don't. It's. Just
I feel like this movie is very close to being good. I just think it needed like another draft, like another like. Yeah. We just need to smooth out because there were also some other things I wanted too.
It just needed a little Beetlejuice.
A little bit, yeah.
What were you going to say? Well, like, what else? What would you have put in this movie?
I wanted a little bit more with like the sister who was pregnant and stuff. I didn't feel like we spent enough time with her. Mm-hmm. And same thing with like the deaf guy and his boyfriend and stuff. I felt like we got very surface level stuff with them.
We did.
I wanted more. I wanted more with them.
Like, really. I was expecting something from each of those stories, but at the same time, not 10 minutes ago, you were calling, you had the Spider-Man 3 problem.
I mean,
I think had they done that, it would have been, we would have had too much. We were juggling too many balls. And sometimes people are just people that get on,
Sure. And I think I would have just removed the sister coming in and like that whole storyline. I'm like, you got to lose one of the, like, I'm like, you got to lose one of them.
Because I've forgotten, because we're talking about the family, but honestly, I'd forgotten. I had forgotten. So they said my sister's coming. I'd forgotten Claire Danes was in this movie.
Yeah.
Until the door opens in the bus, and I go, "Oh shit, Claire Danes! That's right. Her name was right at the beginning of the movie," and I completely forgot because I've been sucked into the whole other thing. And Claire Danes, she's great in this movie. Sorry, but she's great in this movie. I love.
She is great, but it's just that's just something where I'm like, just the brothers falling in love with the opposite sisters. I'm like. That just feels like too much there.
Yeah,
I want more with the actual family. I would have lost one of those storylines. I'm just like, it just doesn't add enough to me.
Disagree. I liked it. Like I said, this movie won me over.
I get that they do it for like the whole romantic side of it. I mean, they even have the thing at the end where she's getting on the bus and then he's standing there and then the bus leaves and he's standing there by himself and you see the bus go away and then the bus stops and then like it's like a
I
very
knew it was gonna
like
happen. Didn't care. Loved it.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I'm like, so what? They just like they're just okay with that. Oh, they're Eskimo sisters now with this other. It's so like it's totally fine that they were fucking one of the like it's just crazy to me. Like at the very end, like they show up, which is this incredibly sweet thing.
Yes, when we get the flash forward. To the next
they do end up getting a little black baby. Great.
Yeah, no. And it's like I liked it. And like for me, I was like I started breaking when Sarah and Jessica Parker got that framed photo for everyone. Yeah. And that's when because that's when even like Rachel McAdams is like, I've been such a dick to this woman. And like, and just she breaks and like, you get the moment between the son, the hard of hearing son and mum. She's like, that's you and me. And it's a great picture. And that's that bit where Dan Keaton's like, no, you did good. You know,
Yeah.
you did good. Well done, you. Like,
This movie is like,
lovely.
to quote my friend Annie, this movie is like a warm hug. You know, it's like a warm blanket. It
I'm
just
on Team Annie. I agree.
yeah.
I'm like, I finished this movie and I'm like crying, and I go over to Missy. I didn't expect this movie to be really. I really like this movie. And then, but it's like it's immediately gone into my, oh no, this is a Christmas movie, or this is a I want to have a bit of a hug movie or a cry. I'm gonna watch this movie because I thought everybody is on top of their game.
Right up there with Die Hard and Batman Returns. Just slot it right in the middle.
I did think it was a little weird at the end, you know, where the whole family, it's a very touching moment, but where the camera pulls back and reveals the house is inside one of the two towers on September 11th.
God,
that was a little weird and out of nowhere. I would not have included that, but you know.
What is that? That is a movie, isn't it? Doesn't it have Robert Pattinson? There's a movie like that.
Remember Me is the name of the movie.
The very last part of the movie is he goes to take a meeting and you see it's in World Trade Center September 11th credits.
A completely average, boring movie up to that point that you don't care about, and then they hit you with that the last 10 seconds, and you're like, "Excuse me, wait a minute,
what?
You can't do this."
Oh my
so
God.
bizarre.
I've heard about that one. I also thought a very touching moment for me was where, because like I said, we've not been sort of clued in, and then we find out, oh, it's back, oh, it's not good, and we're like, okay, I'm assuming breast cancer or something, and we get that moment later on where I thought it was so touching actually, where she's just like, I'm scared because I'm gonna die, and then she's like, you know, she's there with Craig T. Nelson, and then she sort of like, she pulls up her top and it exposes the mastectomy scar, and it's kind of like, you know, it's all done without talking. But it's the, you know, oh, what it means to be a woman. Am I still attractive? And like Craig T. Nelson just immediately just goes in and starts kissing her and hugging her, and like they're about to get it on, whatever. But I thought that was such a lovely scene. I thought it was played out very delicately. I thought that, like I said, we're not spoon feeding all of us. It's just on the face. And it's like Diane Keaton is such an amazing actress, and like Craig T. Nelson as well. That I thought that scene hit me. Like I definitely felt that scene. I don't know about you guys, but it was a.
Well, I kept waiting too at the very end of the film because you really don't know, you know, the family gathers at the Christmas tree, and you really, you know, it's the following. I assume it's the next year, yeah, like a year later.
It's 1 year later. Right? Those babies have been born.
It's like it's assumed that she's not there anymore, but you still don't really know until they pan over, and there's Diane Keaton with just huge robotic tits.
Black eyes, yeah.
The black
eyes. Strange twist. Yeah.
No, but I'm sorry. I didn't want to. Just need a little brevity. But no, honestly, like that, the way that whole scene is shot, I kept waiting for her to like come out with like some cookies or something, like to still be there with him.
You
but
also
like,
notice how the color is just a tiny bit more muted. Like the house is still there and it's filled with family and they're still putting up the tree, but it's not quite as warm. You feel there's just a little something missing, and it's the energy of mum. You know, in that moment. I thought, like I said, this movie won me over. I wasn't expecting to like it. I was expecting it to be a bit of a slog. And it was definitely not. I dug it. I was really on board with this movie. I'm looking. So one thing I did notice at the beginning was like the composer is Michael Giacchino. I was like, the guy from Mr. Batman.
The Batmans?
Batman.
And he did like Star Trek and stuff like that. I was like, oh man, what a sort of random thing to come and doing it.
Did he direct that black and white film too? On oh my gosh.
Oh, the Werewolf at Night.
That's it. Yes.
Yes, he did. He's directing another thing.
That was
actual
he
film.
directed that. Oh, that was really good.
That guy is too talented that it's like actually upsetting.
It's annoying, yeah.
His Star Trek score is incredible. His Lost score is so good. I have the vinyl soundtrack for Lost. He did the Up soundtrack, which is now like when you go through Disneyland, that's what you hear is the Up. Like it's that iconic. And then he's a good director on top of it. Michael Giacchino, you need to chill, dude.
Yeah.
Like you need to be bad at something. It's really making me angry.
Save some for the puss man.
Yeah, for real. If he's also incredibly handsome, I'm gonna be so mad.
Yeah.
He better be a strong 1 out of 10.
Huge tits. Huge tits.
No, he's got a kind of.
No, don't tell me.
He's not unattractive.
Ah,
I'm looking at a picture on his IMDb. He's put some glasses on me and gray up my beard and stuff like that. But like not.
Boy, yo, 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 yo.
But yeah, that guy is. I was looking. He's did Lost, Alias, Fringe, the video game series Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, The Incredible, Star Trek, Up, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Jurassic World. This guy's bloody legendary.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's incredible.
Okay. Wow.
That Lost soundtrack is one of my favorite things I've ever heard. Like, talk about music where like I could just hear the incidental music on Lost and I start getting choked up.
Mm-hmm.
Giacchino, you rule, dude. I wish you were uglier.
So Rishi had smaller tits. So it's something that Ryan threw out a little bit earlier, and it's because this is not going to be an easy thing, is when we get into the Connecticut of it all, or the Connecticut of it all, is that you are correct that most of these movies take place in a house, particularly Beetlejuice, because you can't leave the house or you end up on Saturn or whatever it was we were talking about. The Family Stone is
only one of these movies audibly says Connecticut.
Yes, only Beetlejuice.
Yes, and it's Beetlejuice.
Yes. It was an hour into Beetlejuice. I said, they actually said Connecticut. I spent all
Connecticut.
Yeah. I spent all 3 movies waiting for my favorite shot, which is the close-up of a license plate to let us know where we are.
I was like doing like the my glasses.
I was trying. None of them. No, I was trying to sort of catch it on the back of all those vehicles that we're seeing in Stepford wives and stuff like that.
Yep.
But they all still feel like the exact same place. So whatever the Connecticut of it all, I think has been captured in all these movies because they do feel it. I mean, so you got Family Stone was shot in 4 states. So it was shot in Greenwich, Connecticut, but it was also New Jersey, California, New York. You've got Stepford Wives was shot in 2 separate towns. I think it's Darien and New Canaan or something like that, both in Connecticut. And then Beetlejuice is mostly shot in Vermont. But, once we get up into the New England, as we've discovered, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's like, it's a small state with green rolling hills and nice old colonial houses and a bunch of wasps. Yeah. is essentially, I mean, there's because like that great sort of scene in Stepford Wives where the crazy old lady that writes the articles about people, she goes, have you heard a black family is moving in? I think it's great.
And then you see them in the convenience store at the end, right?
And it's great. It's a little thing. But yeah, so in the very end of the movie, we get that epilogue where all the Stepford Wives are there apart from her. So you've got the couple, so this black couple's moved in, but you hear the guy talking to her like all of the other husbands have been. He's doing the same damn thing. It's like, and it's so subtle. It's just like, it's just a bit of ADR line that's there.
You hear him go, I sure wish you had bigger tits. Also, we're out of eggs.
But like, it was a great touch. But yeah, I mean, like, so you had that, and like, of course we had, like I told you, with Family Stone, it almost seemed insipid to begin with, but you have like, the gay, deaf son with black boyfriend. But actually, he was a great character because what he's kind of he's the only one showing Meredith any grace, which I guess and calling. It's reflective, I think, of that. These are one of those families that you give the new person a hard time to see if they're going to fit in.
Right, because that's definitely something I can only assume had gone through as well. That,
you get that vibe.
Yeah,
and he calls out, Rachel McAdams. Like no, she's a dick. She can be like that. But it's like, but other than that, it's like again, it's just New England, pretty white, and it was pretty, like it was like Dead Poet Society. Like the only way Dead Poet Society could get any whiter was when it snowed.
Yeah. Really lose those characters in the background, sure. Yeah.
Then everybody outside. But I do have, in my opinion, there is one movie that is, for me, a winner. I'm interested in what you guys think before I say anything? I want to hear your perspectives on these
I
movies.
I think I'm gonna go with the Family Stone just because I think it does a lot more with less in the setting. Like I think that to me felt more like when I think of a Connecticut film, and maybe it is because it is a Christmas movie and it is like a family driven film. That to me made it more Connecticut to me, I guess.
I like that. All right. What about you, Will? Where are you landing?
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page because when I'm thinking about it, again, if I'm living in Connecticut, what do I think it probably would represent me better? Sure, my state is half female automatons, but
And half Beetlejuice.
and half Beetlejuice, but
Bio Exorcist, sure, yeah.
But yeah, I think the others are just too sci-fi or goofy to really represent the state, in a realistic way. I think Family Stone comes the closest to what the state
Really?
is actually like.
I
For
will
me-
say, if you somehow combine all three of these movies,
Yeah.
Now
baby,
we're cooking.
you got a stew going.
I
Yeah.
agree. I'm definitely on board with that. Put these three movies together, and I think you've got an absolute banger.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like a family reunion at Christmas. You're trying to figure out which one of the women are robots, and the only
Yeah.
way to do it is to invoke Beetlejuice. There's the
Well,
Because he will sleep with all the female automatons.
right. Well, I was going to say the gay deaf son brings home his own Beetlejuice to conflict with the existing Beetlejuice. Too many It's one of those classic too many Beetlejuice scenarios.
Beetlegeese or something like that.
Beetlegeese. Yeah.
No, because I like what you guys are saying, but I was going in a very different direction. I was like the Stepford Wives.
Yeah, because the tits, sure, yeah.
Is the one, so at least
Exactly.
like, because Family Stone, we hardly ever, granted we do leave the house and we go to a bar and we go to a, like there's the university and stuff like that. But Stepford Wives, okay, hear me out. But for non-Americans, okay, we didn't we don't really understand that whole kind of layout, the New England sort of layout. So what Stepford Wives, more than the other ones, kind of made clear is like, oh, okay, because there's a line when the husband talks about, oh, I met the other commuters. So I was like, oh, right, okay, so Connecticut's this place where the guys work in the city, they get up in the morning and they're probably taking the train into work. So it's like for where I lived, so I lived in the southeast of England. That's what a lot of people did. They lived in the country where I lived, but they all jumped on a train and they went up to King's Cross and they worked in London and then they came back out. So I'm like, okay, so one thing it did is it gave me that sort of sense of geography. It gave me that sense of, all right, so Connecticut is basically people from New York that don't want to live in the city, don't want to live in the constant noise and live in apartment buildings. They want to have space. They want to have, and it's kind of reflective of what I ended up doing when I moved to Texas. But then once we get out in the town as well, so you're meeting all these waspy people, it's weird how the strange thing about Stepford is that no one's from there. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
that's the sort of insipid part about it is there's no actual Connecticut to this because they're all kind of from New York. But you go out, you get a sense of the sort of the small town vibe. It's in the same way that it's a random aside, but the same way that Copland teaches you about New Jersey.
Right.
About you cross the river and Jersey's got this different vibe and they go off over the bridge to work and then they come back to this place where they live.
That is true. You definitely get more geography with Stepford Wives because you do get that bit in New York and then jumping into Connecticut, whereas you don't get that with the other two films. You certainly don't get it with Beetlejuice because it's just this very small pocketed town and then it's just the house and that's it.
And I would argue, and I think you guys are really right about the sort of the heart of it, but I would, and this is an argument you guys often bring to the table, but you could put the Family Stone anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere.
That's
That
true.
could be in Oregon, it could be in Washington, it doesn't matter. It's just a nice house. They are probably neighbors to Kevin McAllister, So it could be in a suburb of Illinois.
Okay, add Home Alone to the mix of the three movies and just
Bang.
There we go.
Again.
Kevin McAllister's got to take out a Beetlejuice
Yeah.
with a nice rack.
Ooh. Oh,
This is a great movie.
shit.
So that's why I
Beetlejuice.
understand that Stepford Wives isn't giving you the heart essentially or showing a state in necessarily a best light or something. But
True.
but it is showing you, like, again, I was like, as the Brit, as the outsider, as someone that learned about America through movies, this one at least taught me, oh, where Connecticut is, how it functions, who people, what it looks like, how it's get you outside of the sort of like, the Fembots, from Austin Powers being created here.
Right.
Right. What do you think about that? Because I like what you said about the heart and how you'd want it if I was a Connecticut person, but I'd say Family Stone could be anywhere. The Connecticut has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
That's very true. I can get behind that. And especially, and we always talk about filmed in versus set in, Stepford Wives, like you said, filmed in different towns in Connecticut. So that also adds to that. So I you know what? I think you're right, especially bringing up that Family Stone could be set anywhere.
True.
This is making more sense to me. Yeah, Stepford Wives.
What about you, Ryan? Have I?
Yeah, you've used my my own words against me. You son of a bitch. my only weakness. My only
your own petard.
My petard. So petarded. Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, you make a great point, and goddamn you son of a bitch.
I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting it, but as we were talking about it, I was like, I think like this one was a clear one for me.
I'm sorry, Stepford Wives didn't make you cry. Fucking monster. Yeah, no, you're right. It does paint more of the geographic picture of that East Coast area, And
I'm not implying that that people live in Connecticut are a bunch of women-hating incels that want to create robot sex bots, but
aren't you though?
But I am.
Yeah. I think it's just reflective of the fact that we've picked 3 movies. One of them is insane. It's Beetlejuice. One of them you can set anywhere, and then you've got the Stepford Wives. So I think it's in this case reflective of the movies that we chose. So
yeah, that's
all right,
true.
So I'm going to say
sign off on that.
That we want to say that the movie to officially represent Connecticut here on the United States of Movie Podcast, at least until we can find a movie to dethrone it, is 1975's The Stepford Wives, directed by Brian Forbes, starring Catherine Ross, Paula Prentice, Peter Masterson, Patrick O'Neill. It is available on Tubi, but kind of like I was saying is, I think we maybe could have picked different movies or other movies. So before we move on, it's always like I like to talk about what were some of the other movies that we thought about. I do remember one that I kind of wish you had chosen. I think you were circling it, Ryan, was The Ice Storm. Is that?
Oh yeah, the Ang Lee film.
Lee
That's
movie?
right. Yeah,
Oh.
I'd never seen it, but I've heard it's incredible, and that's just one I for sure thought. But then I had to honor the good word of my dear friend Annie and watch this fucking stupid movie.
I am glad you did. I'm glad that chose it. But yeah, The Ice Storm is something that it's Kevin Kline, Joan Allen, Tobey Maguire, Christina Ricci, Elijah Wood, Sigourney Weaver.
Another family rom-com.
It doesn't sound like a com, but it is a Thanksgiving movie as well.
Okay.
But it doesn't sound like it's 2 families in an affluent Connecticut suburb experiment with adultery and substance abuse over Thanksgiving.
Fuck yeah.
All right.
Let's go.
Some other ones that I saw, Mystic Pizza was one that I'm like, I could.
That was on my radar for a bit. Yeah.
Revolutionary Road, never saw that one.
The Haunting in Connecticut.
And then I was about to say, I'm amazed Will didn't just decide to just take an opportunity to beat me over the head.
It's only fun if you don't want to watch those movies anymore,
right?
Man, you said you're getting back, and now you're getting into horror.
It's not. I don't.
Now it's not fun.
I still don't like watching them, guys. But I'm understanding why people enjoy them.
Yeah.
But any other sort of movies that you guys were circling regarding Connecticut?
I saw there was another Conjuring that was listed there. I don't know how much of that movie takes place in Connecticut. That would have been fun to throw at you. But yeah, Mystic Pizza was like the other one. I was like,
yeah.
really. I also saw Amistad listed.
Yeah.
And I guess Connecticut. I guess you got some explaining to do. I don't know.
If you're going with movies
Club?
shots in Connecticut, we've got Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
The best one.
Pizza Amistad, yeah. because it was okay. Yeah, at the
So,
seaport. All
movies,
right.
yeah.
A Mighty Wind.
Oh man, what? I could have
all
picked
right.
that.
We might already need to do a challenge episode.
We got some scenes of War of the Worlds. The Tom Cruise one there. Like I said, Revolutionary Road.
Both orphan movies.
God.
Stanley and Iris never heard. So the two Stepford Wives movies are listed. So there's plenty to sort of like jump into. I think
Yeah.
we can. I think like I said, Beetlejuice is just. I just wanted to watch.
I mean, we've got Beetlejuice coming out. You've got, what was the
Right.
Stepford sequel? I said it was Step 2, Stepford versus Ferrari.
That's where they turn all the wives into cars.
Banger. Oh my God. Hang on. Michael Bay just came in his pants.
Turn it into a transformer and we are good. So yeah, there was definitely sort of some movies to choose from, like when we circle back around. Though I will say I liked this week. I enjoyed it. It was another week. It didn't feel like a slog. It gave me some surprises. It walked me down a bit of nostalgia that I hadn't been down for a long time, and gave me something new, like with the Stepford Wives. So I feel like it was a successful week. We have another week to go. So I tell you what, because plans are unclear as to what is going to happen with our next episode, because I am going to be in town. So the opportunity for a special episode is there.
A live episode.
Yes. But what I'm going to do anyway is we're going to use the magical pen. We're going to select what the next state is, but stay tuned as to what the next episode's going to be, because it may very well just be a normal episode, but we might throw something random into the mix if we can work it out. So going to do it. So I got to take off Connecticut. So how many we got left? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9.
Now I thought we had 9 last episode.
Okay, well, let me double check.
Are there 52 states now?
Yeah, that's right. The 51st state. No, so we've got New Jersey, Delaware, Kansas, North and South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, Utah, and Indiana to go.
Fun story. I was walking my dog the other day, and a person in my in my complex mentioned they're from Delaware, and I was talking about this podcast. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is perfect." One of the states we haven't done is Delaware. I'm like, "What's the most Delaware movie you could ever think of?" And she goes, "You're fucked." No.
Oh, I know. No. I've looked at the Delaware page.
We are dreading that.
From nightmare. A person from Delaware.
It's like my entire knowledge of Delaware is Wayne's World.
Yeah, we're all going to just do an entire episode based on that one line of dialogue.
Hey, yeah, I'm in Delaware. So, well, let's see if the magical pen points to Delaware this week. Okay, we're going to do it. Oh, no.
Oh, God.
Delaware.
Oh, no.
So, guys, this is going to be a documentary or something. It's coming.
What if we just go to Delaware and pick any other movie? Does that count?
We'll just record in Delaware. But yeah, okay,
we're
guys.
Do the local news broadcast.
The problem is with Delaware, there's only one movie that we've all heard of. We're all trying to pick it. I'm like, dude, that is my number one.
Man of Steel? Man of Steel?
So stay tuned. Like I said, next week might be a special episode. We'll see what we can put together. It might just be a Delaware episode where we all complain about the fact there's no movies to watch. But in the meantime, thank you very much for taking part. We do really enjoy a lot of the comments now coming in on YouTube. Really appreciate you guys joining us there. Don't forget as well on our Facebook page. It's great fun.
Where I'm a hit, apparently. People love me on there.
People love your memes. But yeah, no, bring us your ideas. We love all of the comments and stuff that you guys bring, especially on the videos that I post every Monday as that Englishman in Texas or as Ollie Pettigrew on Facebook. I always like to do a movie-themed video. And there's some great suggestions in the comments is what I really, really enjoy. You can also get into it with Will on his TikTok entitled Willennial, where he very often is sitting in front of his massive wall of Blu-rays. He'll bring out a movie. He'll tell you about a movie you've never heard of that you might want to enjoy. With Ryan, you can enjoy his designs. Big movie fan. You can find him as Rhino Digital, R-Y-N-O Digital, on Threadless, on Etsy, on things like that. But like I talk about, he's got some fantastic redesigned movie posters and things like that. They're very collectible.
One of which I got Predator. I finally got it here in town.
Oh,
and I'm giving it to my buddy Jake, and it looks
Nice.
fantastic.
Oh, thanks so much, man.
But
Thank
yeah, would recommend.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, if you are watching, you'd be surprised how many people watch stuff on YouTube without subscribing. It's crazy. So if
Monsters.
you aren't subscribed, do us a favor. It helps. Click subscribe or hit that little notifications bell. Drop into a video. Give us a comment, even if it's to insult Will's choice of memes. We really enjoy it. If you are listening
Bring
to
it
us,
on.
Spotify or on Apple or on Amazon, do us a favor as well. Just take a second and just rate us. That would be fantastic. Maybe share the podcast with somebody if you meet someone from Delaware, ask them if they've got any movies and do me a favor and send it to us. But outside of that,
Please, right in from Delaware.
Ryan, Will, good luck for the fight that we're going to see who gets to choose the movie we all want to choose. But outside of that, thank you for your excellent choices, as always, and for taking part in this podcast. And so from Ryan, from Will, and from me, as always, thanks for joining us for this episode of the United States of a Movie podcast.